Thank you. We are at item 27 was removed, so we're at item 28 on the agenda. This is a review of RFP number 37-11, submittals and vendor selection for White Street landfill operations. And Mr. Manager, I'll call on you, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have in your packet and received on Friday an overview of the financial analysis for the respondents to this RFP. We do have Joe Redling from HDR Engineering, who has been working with us throughout this process, that will provide you an overview of the respondents' submittals and the financial analysis that accompanies it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Joe Redling with HDR Engineering, working out of 440 South Church Street in Charlotte. Appreciate the opportunity to bring you an update of the proposals that came in on August 5th. You had information that went out in the IFYI on Friday, and I've summarized that in a fairly short PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to walk through, probably maybe 15 minutes worth to get through it, and then we can open it up to any questions you may have. Just as a quick overview, I'm going to talk a little bit about what this solicitation was and what it was not, and the implementation schedule. Give you a summary of the proposals that came in. Talk a little bit about the financial model and what we've put into a financial model to compare the proposals. Give you the results of that comparison, and then go from that and open it up to questions. The solicitation was set up as a two-part solicitation. The basic services being solicited were to come in and operate Phase 3. And I'll kind of benchmark to what the prior solicitation was. The prior solicitation was a comprehensive operation of the facility, including running a scale house and doing turnkey operations. This solicitation is scaled down from that. It's been referred to as a push and pack concept. So the services include this company coming in and directing the trucks as they come onto the landfill, compacting the waste, covering the waste at the end of the day, doing seeding within the lined area, maintaining the Phase 3 MSW area up until some point when it would be closed. We solicited these services for a range of tonnages. The tonnages that have been discussed, you have certain tons that you pick up on city trucks. At your transfer station right now, you also receive private sector tons that come in, and we set up a category of ranges so that we would get pricing from the low end of what you manage up to and including everything that goes through the transfer station right now to make sure that we covered all the bases there. The third bullet, the services here are limited just to use of the currently permitted Phase 3 area. So it's an area that's already been built. It already has waste across the entire 51, 52 acre area. It's got about 1.5 million cubic yards of space remaining, and that will hold approximately 1 million tons of waste, approximately. So basically the solicitation here is to have this operator come in and manage the filling of your remaining permitted capacity just of Phase 3. Now, second main bullet here, additional services. It was decided that it would be prudent to include in the solicitation operations, having the company operate the Phase 2 construction and demolition area, which operates on top of the old municipal solid waste Phase 2 area. But it's termed in the solicitation as an additional service, and that was done on purpose. The concept would be that you would, if you contract with somebody for the MSW operations, you could add the C&D operations, but it was not contemplated that you would contract with somebody just to do the C&D and not do the MSW. So think of the C&D as an additional service in addition to the MSW services if the city wants to do that. And they're basically the same services as described above. Just again, for clarification, city staff will continue to be responsible for a number of services. City staff will operate the scale house. The city will continue to set the tipping fee, what you charge people when they come in as private companies. You'll continue to manage the revenue and billing. You'll maintain and operate the gas system, gas recovery system, and the leachate systems out there. You'll supply soil to this contractor if needed. You have certain soil resources on the White Street property, but if those resources became exhausted over time, the city is committed to bringing in soil resources for this company to use in the covering of the waste. The city would continue to be responsible for implementing, paying for final closure, and you would continue to operate the yard waste area. So I set that up to try to tell you what's included and be very clear on what's not included. This is just a repeat of the schedule that's in the actual RFP. So far, we were about 2/3 of the way down on council meeting to select vendor, moving towards the goal of a contract initiation, assuming you award a contract to someone, that they would initiate that contract around October 18th. In terms of the proposals that were received, 6 came in on August 5th, and they're listed here in alphabetical order. A1 Sandrock, Advanced Disposal, Gate City, Sandtech, Triangle Grading and Paving, and Waste Industries. You're familiar with Advanced Disposal, Gate City, and Waste Industries as folks that responded to the previous RFP. A1 Sandrock, Sandtech, and Triangle Grading and Paving are new respondents to this RFP. And I'll talk a little more about those in detail as we go through. This is simply a restatement of the pricing that was in each company's proposal. So this is right out of the price form 1 from their proposal. This is also a summary block on that kind of fine print, lots of detail spreadsheet that you got in the IFYI. But this is basically what the responses included. So you got the company to the left, again in alphabetical order. When the column that says index, we leave it to the vendor to decide if they want their prices escalated over time or if they choose to not have them escalate and offer a fixed price. And so under the description column there, you'll see what they suggested. And in terms of value, that's a number we put in, which is basically we average the index, like the Consumer Price Index, all urban users, CPIU. We average the last 10 years of the Consumer Price Index to use as a forecasting tool to say maybe the future will look like the past 10 years and chose that number. Under the service fees, I just wanted to put this in here to be clear on how we solicited for the services. The left-hand set of 4 columns is for municipal solid waste. The right-hand 4 columns are for C&D. And these were cost per ton, and the ranges are monthly tonnage. So under MSW, the low-range tonnage was 5,000 to 10,000 tons a month, all the way up to a high range of greater than 20,001 tons per month. All you got to do is multiply that times 12 if you want to think in terms of annual tonnage. And we've reported it that way in the detailed spreadsheet, so you can kind of get a sense of it as monthly or annual, either one. So those are the prices straight from the proposals. What you can't do is simply look at a low price here and decide who might be the lowest cost offer. You can't do it because some prices are escalated as requested by the proposer. Other prices are not escalated. We also have an ebb and flow of monthly tonnage, particularly like C&D tonnage. C&D is influenced by time of year a good bit of when things are being constructed or when things are more flat in terms of construction projects. So we needed to try to put together a model that would identify what that looks like in a way to compare the proposals apples to apples. So that's what we did, and this is where it gets sketchy for the audience, but we just wanted to put everything on one page, and we were able to do that. And I'm going to give a brief overview of what's here, but I do have some charts and graphs that show the results of this in detail that everybody can see. The first section, section 1, the top box, is basically the tonnage that we modeled. We took the last 3 years of your tonnage that you've been managing, and we said, let's average that and put it in a monthly basis. And so that's what section 1 is tonnage. Section 2, we said we've got to calculate how long the phase 3 area is going to last. If you put more tons in it, it lasts a shorter period of time. If you put fewer tons in it per month, it lasts a longer period of time. So we need to estimate the life. Section 3 is simply what I just showed you on the prior slide. That is the results of the proposal pricing. So that's just a restatement of the proposal offers. And section 4 is actually the cost analysis. Section 4 is broken into 2 parts, the top and the bottom. The top is termed Scenario A, and Scenario A includes, think of Scenario A as the status quo scenario. It assumes that the tonnage that the city picks up, the average amount you've picked up over the last 3 years, average per month, plus the tonnage that you've managed at the transfer station that are private tons that come in, all would turn and go to White Street. So it's a status quo for the municipal solid waste tonnage, and it's status quo for C&D. There's really no change in either scenario for C&D. We just assume that what's been happening at the C&D Phase 2 area would continue to happen. So Scenario B assumes a smaller, lesser tonnage rate. It assumes that all that goes into White Street for municipal solid waste is what is collected on a city truck. So that's an overview of the 4 parts. I don't want to get into detail right now. I will talk about a few other issues. So again, this is some of the description I just went through, Scenario A and B, so you can be clear about what that is. When we talk about the tonnages, what you've managed over the past 3 years on average is about 240,000 tons of municipal solid waste. So the status quo scenario says there's about 240,000 tons that would go to White Street annually. If you said, I don't want to take any of those private tons, I want to get out of the business of receiving that waste, I only want to take care of what's collected on my city truck, then that's about 140,000 tons per year, the city collected MSW. And then the C&D waste is on the average the last 3 years, it's averaged about 54,000 tons a year. So that's used in both scenarios. We also, in order to calculate the anticipated life of the remaining life of the currently permitted Phase 3, we had to assume a density of the waste and calculate how many tons of waste could go in it. And that's pertinent because as we're escalating certain pricing and not escalating others, the term of our modeling, it matters. So in that, the remaining life of Phase 3 in Scenario A, taking about 240,000 tons a year, is 4.41 years. That's about how long it would last if you took the status quo, 240,000 tons there every year. Scenario B, taking just city-collected MSW at 140,000 tons a year, would extend the life to 7.58 years. So those are the 2 periods of time that we have modeled. A couple other pertinent things. You have more remaining capacity in life based on your tonnages you've been receiving, the 54,000 tons a year C&D. You have more capacity in the C&D area in terms of time than you would in these scenarios for MSW. So, and I try not to be confusing here, but the assumptions of the model are that you fill up Phase 3, and then this contractor, he doesn't have any more garbage to put in Phase 3, he walks away. That leaves you some capacity in Phase 2, and what happens with that doesn't really matter in terms of trying to compare one cost to another. So we're just saying the controlling time frame is Phase 3's life, and that when that's done, that contractor would walk away and you would have some residual capacity in Phase 2. We mentioned cost escalators. I mentioned that we used an average 10-year. In that spreadsheet, and I'm going to go to that in a minute, we've looked at the total of what you would pay this contractor over the life of Phase 3, either 4.4 or 7.58 years, what you would pay them in total for MSW and for handling the C&D, and we added those together. So this is what your total payout would be under this contract to each one of the contractors. That is what has been ranked in the detailed spreadsheet. When you look in the box, the section 4, and you see the ranking, it's a ranking of lowest price, lowest total payout cost to highest total payout. And then the last bullet on this page, and I'm going to go back and make sure we hit it in detail, annual cost of disposal services. In section 4 of the detailed spreadsheet, over to the far right, the last 3 columns. The first column there is an estimate of what your net cost of disposal is for the city. Think about your budget. What's your net cost of disposal? It's the $4.7 million in the range of. The next column is what that cost would be if you contracted with one of the proposers to resume full operation of White Street. And then the final column to the far right is an estimation of what your annual savings would be, your net savings of between your current business model of hauling it out of county to what it would be if you resumed operation of White Street. And I'll talk about that, show you a little more detail in some graphs. So in terms of the model results, I just described certain columns here, and I'm not going to go through them on this screen, but certainly if you have any questions, we tried to be very detailed as we footnoted all the numbers on this spreadsheet so you could understand what we were trying to portray in the estimating. What I'm going to go to now, though, is again, think of this as what your annual savings would be by changing your business model from going out of county to resuming full operation of White Street. This is scenario A. This assumes the status quo tonnage. All 240,000 tons are turning to White Street, going in there. All C&D will continue to go there just as it has been. And these are estimated annual savings. This is the scenario that has the highest tonnage. And so this is the scenario that has the shortest remaining life for Phase 3 at the 4.41 years. I'm going to hit a couple of graphs and then I'll be done and we can circle back if we need to. Scenario B. This is the scenario of city collected waste only going to White Street, about 140,000 tons a year. It means that Phase 3's remaining capacity would last about 7.58 years. So the annual savings is less. That's because you're taking less tonnage in and you're making less margin. We've assumed you would have the same tipping fee, the same $41 you charge at the transfer station now is what you would charge the private tons that go there. So because your cost of disposal is much less at White Street, your savings are greater for the higher tonnage on an annualized basis. So this shows you for each offer what the savings would be. And they are listed on these two graphs. They're no longer in alphabetical order. They're listed from the most savings to the least savings, the prior graph and this graph. And then the last graph is if you totaled up your savings for the blue is if you continue to take the status quo scenario where you're taking all the MSW in. You say, okay, over 4.4 years, I take a lot of tons into White Street, about 1 million tons of MSW. And over 4.4 years, that multiplies out to somewhere around 23 down to as little as 11 or 12 million dollars of savings over the 4.4 years. If you say, no, I want to just take city collected waste, but that's over 7.5 years, We totaled up those savings, and it's from $25 million down to as low as 10 or 11 million, depending on who the offer's from. So that's just a totaling up of the right-hand column on the detailed spreadsheet. From that, just a couple of key observations, talking a little more about the company's qualifications and experience. First bullet, Advanced Disposal, Gate City, and Waste Industries. We reviewed their qualifications and experience the last time, and they were each deemed to have adequate financial strength to back that project, which was a more comprehensive project, and adequate qualifications and experience to perform the services requested. In Advanced Disposal and Waste Industries, they do that with those two companies, the staff of those two companies. Remember that the Gate City proposal is a teaming arrangement between MRR Southern, a local company here, D.H. Griffin involved, and WCA Waste Corporation, which is a Texas-based company that does a lot of the same things that Advanced Disposal or Waste Industries would do. So that was a teaming relationship. Santec Environmental is new to this round of proposals. They manage a number of landfill operations. In fact, they do a lot of contract operations that are very similar to this solicitation, meaning that a lot of their core work is working for municipalities where they come in and are the operator of a site. They have some history in North Carolina. They're a Tennessee-based firm that works mostly in the southeast, but they do have history in North Carolina, having operated the North Wake landfill for a number of years, and now with the new South Wake landfill, Waste Industries has that contract. So Santec, we believe to have adequate qualification and experience to do this work. We have not reviewed their financial history, or not their offering, but their financial strength of the firm. We did not review that. I don't have any reason to think it would not be adequate, but that's a little background on Santec. A1 Sandrock, as a local firm here, Triangle Grading and Paving, as somebody that does a fair amount of construction and has constructed lined landfills. They really didn't cite adequate experience in having operated MSW landfills. They've got some landfill experience, some of it's more construction demolition based, or they have staff that has a long history of having operated facilities, but they really don't have contracts historically that they could cite and say, I hold a contract with municipality A, B, or C to manage their MSW facility. They also represented the two highest cost offers as well. So that's just kind of a rundown company by company. With that, I will circle back to any questions that you have.